The remarks of former Chief Justice Willy Mutunga recently about the future of President William Samoei Ruto and his administration has sent shockwaves right across the country. And for very obvious reasons. Willie Mutunga is no ordinary Kenyan. Yeah? He is a former Chief Justice. Indeed, the first Chief Justice under the new 2010 Constitution. He has experience. He is about 77 years old today. Yeah? And as they say, there is no substitute to experience. And therefore, if it was a younger man, one of these political fly-by-night characters, then maybe it would not have been such a big deal. But coming from Willie Mutunga, very many people are shocked. You know, we should not even be shocked. This is a prediction we have heard from so many. This is a prediction that may not even be classified as a prediction. Yeah, because what Bwana Mutunga is doing is reading the politics, reading human nature, analyzing the current situation today in our country called Kenya. On my show today, we're going to break down what the former Chief Justice said. And we're even going to look a little deeper into this. Yeah? And the result, trust me, is super fascinating. But let us start with the character of Willie Mutunga, before we move forward, because this is going to be very instructive. You see, Bwana Mutunga has spent most of his adult life fighting for a better Kenya. He was jailed by the Moi administration, for his political views and for fighting and wanting a better Kenya. It is super fascinating that when he became Chief Justice, he even visited his former cell in Kilifi County, where he was held for a number of years. But that legacy was almost destroyed early in the year 2013, when as Chief Justice, he led a bench, a Supreme Court bench, that sanctioned the election of Uhuru Ruto for the first term. It is still the belief of many that there was a lot of evidence of irregularities in that election, enough for Justice Willy Mutunga's bench to have overturned the election of Uhuru Ruto in 2013. And many political analysts, including yours truly, believe that that decision was made more because of political considerations rather than legal ones. Because at the time there was the great fear that the country would be paralyzed if the election was overturned. What would happen next? What would the Supreme Court order to be done? Because sincerely, would you expect a better election from the very same IEBC, and with all the players still firmly in place, the deep state, etc., etc.? The truth is, it is not practical. And I believe this was proved in 2017, just a short 4 years later, when the Supreme Court bench, led by the then Chief Justice who had taken over from Willie Mutunga, Justice David Maraga, overturned the re-election of Uhuru Ruto. And so Willie Mutunga was right all along. But who said life is fair? Because history is going to treat Chief Justice David Maraga much better than it will treat Mutunga. History will of course overlook all the chaos that followed that decision by the Maraga bench, including very serious life-threatening incidences, like what happened to Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, where her vehicle was fired at, took several bullets. Fortunately, she was not in the vehicle. But of course, this was enough to terrify Maraga's bench, so much so that after the fiasco that I cannot even call a repeat election, they cowed, and quietly accepted the re-election of Uhuru. It is possible that this chain of events are exactly what has brought back the old Willie Mutunga, the activist, the very fierce fighter for a better Kenya, because he has been very vocal politically over the last year or so. And we will probably never know whether he felt any guilt at all over what happened in 2013, or if he still holds on to the school of thought that it was the right thing to do then. We will never know. But here he is with this latest prediction. And trust me, upende uspende, you have no option but to take the man very seriously, considering his background and who he is. But I know the question which is burning on your minds right now, and it is simply, is Mutunga right? And if so, when is this most likely to happen? I am going to take on those explosive questions and more head on. But first, another quick reminder about this season and the tradition of Kumekuchans, who usually gift me, boost this work, this channel, at this time of the year. And I just want to remind you that you still have a chance to join in what some of us believe is a noble undertaking. Those who have been with me long enough, those who understand me and what this channel is all about. You can see details on your screens right now. I thank you so much in advance. Right. Before we answer those explosive questions, I want to tell you a story that will illustrate very graphically the reason why the former Chief Justice talked the way he did, and the reason why what he said is the most likely thing that is going to happen in our dear country. Because there are many people who don't see it. They don't believe it. After all, if somebody has state machinery behind them, all the security forces are under their command, can anything like this really happen? Let me just tell you that brief story that illustrates a dark side of human nature, that is important to understand, so that we fully grasp this thing which has been predicted, in fact by many others, even before the former Chief Justice came out in public and said what he said. In the year 1972, there was a plane crash in the Andes Mountains, and there were many survivors from the initial crash. But at the end of the ordeal, only 16 survived. This is after 72 days in the wilderness, no water, no food. And the reason why those 16 survived is because they started feeding on those who did not survive. Now, admittedly, this may sound very far-fetched. It doesn't make sense. You could say to yourself, I would never do something like that. But even if we go back to the Bible, there is the story about the king who was stopped by one of his subjects, the king of Israel then. And this woman was complaining to the king because their city was surrounded by an invading army. And food was getting more and more scarce by the day. This woman complained to the king that they had agreed with a neighbor that they feed on her son on the first day, and then they would feed on her neighbor's son the next time. However, when that next time came, the neighbor hid her son, and the king was very distressed and disturbed at this complaint from one of his subjects. It is in the Bible. It happened. My point here is very simple. The biggest enemy, the biggest threat right now to the Ruto presidency is not Raila Odinga, is not Azimio, is not anybody else, but the following: the tummy of a human being. Hunger. That is the most deadly opponent of Ruto right now. You may not believe it. You may not even want to imagine it. But the only thing that keeps people sane and reasonable is regular meals. When you go without food, not even for a long time, a human has proven time and time again that they cease to be human and they turn into a violent animal. That is precisely what former Chief Justice Willy Mutunga was talking about when he made these remarks. It is a lesson in politics and governance that my late political lecturer repeated so many times that it bored me. And I have to confess, at the time, I did not think that it was such a big deal. But my political lecturer's prediction came to pass. What he had simply said is that Moi understood this deadly political opponent, the stomach. And Moi was careful to ensure that Kenyans would never get to that point where the stomach would start to rule emotions and actions. Because Moi knew very well that when that happened, he would be gone in a flash. And therefore Sly Moi did a number of things that maybe I've never heard of anywhere before. He went to great lengths to ensure that people had money in their pockets. In those days, we were also going through some very serious economic troubles. Very huge shortage, unprecedented, of foreign exchange. The government did not have money. But Moi would do something that may have looked strange to those who did not understand. Immediately some money came in, the government would make a very huge effort to pay suppliers. People had supplied the government, especially small suppliers. In those days, we did not have such serious cartels as we do today. And therefore suppliers of government were spread across many different Kenyans from different walks of life. And when the government released money to suppliers, you could feel it if you're in the country. Suddenly people had money. Suddenly there was money moving around. Suddenly more people had money. Moi, understanding that Kenyans were very corrupt, would sometimes supervise, as President of the Republic of Kenya, he would supervise the distribution of relief food, especially in the Ukambani area. Many times he would use his trusted people and even the security forces to ensure that relief food was distributed properly with minimal corruption. And my political lecturer said several times, it doesn't matter what Ken Matiba is saying, it doesn't matter what Paul Mwite is saying, and all the other people involved in the second liberation, they will never remove Moi from power, ever. Why? Because Moi understands. Now, of course, the Ruto administration is a totally different cup of tea. Because even as Kenyans continue to suffer, go without food, all we hear in the news are more taxes, more levies, government services charges going up, etc., etc. We just hear about things that remove money from the pockets of Kenyans and therefore push them further into hunger and that deadly situation where any human reacts in a very predictable manner because they're hungry. And actually we can already see the signs very clearly right before our eyes. The presidential motorcade has been booed and jeered several times in many parts of the country. There was even a recent incident in Kisii where Ruto tried to address the people. They could not allow him to address them. You can feel the anger of Kenyans. It is very thick in the air. You can feel it. And therefore it becomes very predictable that at any time things in our dear motherland can go very wrong. You see, human psychology is such that when a person is hungry, especially if they've gone through a few days without eating, they stop caring. They stop thinking about the risks of what they're doing. They become less human and more wild animal. But here is the other side of the coin that is equally fascinating. When you're having things good in your life, when you're eating more than you should eat, throwing away food in the process, buying expensive shoes, buying expensive watches, buying houses, etc., etc., it is very easy to lose touch with the reality surrounding you. It is very easy to fail to see the danger around you. It is very easy, especially if you have power, to fool yourself that you're secure, especially the security surrounding you and your people and your loved ones. I believe those are the current circumstances in our dear country that has brought us to a very deadly place. Now I know many younger Kenyans would cheer something like this happening tomorrow. But of course they have never seen the horrors of violence and the horrors of hungry people doing crazy things because they've been pushed to a corner. Many younger Kenyans never saw the horrors of 2007. Many Kenyans, most Kenyans, never saw how bad things can be when things in a country get out of hand. I'm talking about the 1982 failed coup attempt, which I don't even call a coup attempt. But in 1982, things went down for very few hours. But the damage, the loss of life, was colossal. I do appreciate the fact that younger Kenyans do not see that ugly side. But it is there. It doesn't mean that if you can't see it, if they can't see it, it is not there. It is. And you who is excited have no idea where you'll be when things go wrong and in what way you'll be affected. Oh God Almighty, have mercy on the country called Kenya. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.